Welcome to QuickSpeak, the English podcast that helps you learn the ins and outs of the English language while we explore interesting topics. Today, we're going to be talking about dating, specifically the idea of being too picky.
Oh, this is a good one. This is a good one. There are so many different ways to think about what it means to be selective when you're dating, and we're going to try to break all that down for you today.
So let's start by kind of like breaking it down. What does it actually mean to be picky when it comes to looking for a partner?
Well, I think the best way to think about it is it means having preferences or standards that you're looking for in a partner. It could be anything from physical attributes to personality traits, how they live their life, or values that you share. I think it's important to remember that everyone has preferences, but the idea of too picky comes in when those preferences are maybe too rigid or unrealistic, you know?
Yeah, and I think it's also important to say that having some standards is generally seen as a good thing, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Being selective can be a really positive thing, and in fact, it can be a sign of self-respect and, wanting a really great relationship. It shows that you value yourself and what you bring to the table, and it also helps you to be more intentional with your dating choices.
Okay, so you're saying it can be beneficial. So can you maybe talk a little bit more about the potential benefits of being selective when you're dating?
Sure. I mean, when you're clear about what you're looking for, you're more likely to find someone who's actually compatible with you. And that can lead to better connections, happier relationships in the long run. And also, you're not wasting time on relationships that aren't really going to work out.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it's not just about having this list of things you're looking for. It's about thinking carefully about what's really important in a partner.
Right. It's about knowing what you need and what your values are and finding someone who kind of shares those things.
Okay, so we talked about some of the good sides of being picky, but I imagine there's also another side to that. Are there any potential downsides to, like, being too selective?
Oh, yeah, there definitely are. I think one of the biggest ones is that you might miss out on some really great opportunities. If you're holding on too tightly to what you think you're looking for, a very specific set of criteria, you might overlook someone who's really wonderful just because they don't fit that exact image you have in your mind.
Right, so it's kind of about striking a balance between knowing what you want and being open to trying new things, meeting new people.
Exactly. Yeah. And that balance is tough to find sometimes. Another possible downside is you might end up having expectations that are just not realistic. Sometimes we might get ideas about what the perfect partner looks like from things like, what we see in movies or on social media, things like that.
Right, so it's really important to think about where those expectations are coming from, like you said. Are they coming from the media, or are they things that we really want in a partner?
Yeah, for sure. And it's also possible that, some people who are too selective might end up being single for a longer time. And, for some people that can be hard.
So it seems like finding that perfect balance between having standards and being open to, meeting different kinds of people is really important. How do you think people can find that balance?
Well, it's definitely a journey. And, it starts with you. It starts with you understanding yourself. So I think a good first step is to think about the difference between your needs and your wants in a relationship. Like, what are the things that are absolute deal breakers, the things you just can't compromise on? And then what are those things that you prefer, but you're a little bit more flexible about?
Yeah, that seems really helpful, like knowing what's most important and what you can be flexible about.
Yeah. And another thing that's really important is self-reflection. Just take some time to think about those standards, those things you're looking for. Are those based on things that you really value and goals that you have, or are they coming from like external things that maybe aren't really serving you?
So what you're saying is we should question those things we've always thought we wanted in a partner.
Exactly. It's always good to double check those things, make sure they line up with who you are now and what you really want from a relationship. Sometimes you might be surprised at what you discover about yourself.
I see. So it's like being open to the possibility that the person who's right for you might not be exactly what you thought.
Right. And remember, it's okay to give people a chance. Sometimes we judge too quickly, based on first impressions, but people are complicated. So be open to getting to know someone. You never know what you might find.
Right. So look beyond that first impression. Let people show you who they are.
Yeah, and it's also important to remember that relationships are about growing and sharing experiences. So you want someone who's willing to kind of go through that with you, learn and grow together.
So it's not about finding someone who's already perfect. It's about finding someone who's willing to, change and grow with you.
Exactly. And finally, Don't be afraid to ask for advice from people you trust, friends, family, even a therapist. They can help you see things that maybe you don't see yourself.
Okay, so that outside perspective can be really helpful. Now, I'm curious, why do you think some people have such high standards for dating? It seems like there might be more to it than just wanting specific things.
Yeah, I think you're right. A lot of times there are deeper reasons for why people seem to have really high standards. Sometimes it's a way of protecting themselves.
Protecting themselves. How so?
Well, if someone's been hurt in the past, had their heart broken or been disappointed, they might kind of build up walls and set those really high standards as a way to, like, not get hurt again.
So it's like they're trying to avoid getting hurt again by being really careful about who they let in.
Yeah, exactly. For some people, it's a way to feel more in control, like they're less likely to get hurt if they're only letting certain people get close to them.
I see. So it's like they're putting up a barrier around their heart.
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah.
But it's also important to remember that while it's understandable to want to protect yourself, sometimes that can stop you from having really great connections with people.
So how do you know if you're being, like, healthy in your selectivity, like you're respecting yourself, or if you're just being unrealistic and holding yourself back?
That's a really good question, and it takes a lot of looking inward, being honest with yourself. First, think about why you have the standards you have. Are they things that are truly important to you, or are they coming from what other people think you should want or what you think you should want?
So it's about understanding yourself and where those beliefs are coming from.
Exactly. And also think about how consistent your standards are. Do they change a lot depending on your mood or what's happening around you? Or are they pretty stable? If they're changing all the time, maybe they're not really coming from your true self.
Right. So you're saying look for patterns in how you think about these things.
Yeah. And also, are you open to being surprised by someone? Even if they don't check every box on your list, are you willing to see what happens? Or are you totally set in your ways?
I see. So be open to the possibility that someone might be great, even if they're not exactly what you pictured.
Right. And remember, nobody's perfect. Realistic standards mean, people have flaws, and it's okay. It's about connecting with someone, even if they're not, perfect on the surface.
It's about being human, accepting the good and the bad.
Exactly. And finally, think about the relationships you're having now. Are they good relationships? Do you feel good about them? Even if they don't match up perfectly with what you thought you wanted, are they making you happy? If not, maybe it's time to rethink how you're approaching dating.
So it's about checking in with yourself, seeing if what you're doing is actually working for you.
Exactly, yeah. It's about being honest about what you need and adjusting if something's not working.
Now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about societal pressure. It seems like society has a big influence on who we think we should be with.
Oh, definitely. It's a huge factor, and it's important to understand how it affects us, especially these days.
So how do you think society influences our search for that perfect partner?
Well, I think social media plays a big role. We're always seeing pictures of perfect couples, big weddings, amazing vacations, and it kind of creates this idea that everyone's life is perfect and effortless, which is just not true.
Right. It's like everyone's showing you their best moments, not the everyday stuff.
Exactly. And that can make you feel bad about yourself, or you need to find someone who will make you look good on social media. It's all about appearances.
So instead of looking for someone who's a good match for you, you're looking for someone who fits this image that society has created. Yeah.
Yeah, it happens a lot. And then there's this thing called FOMO, which stands for fear of missing out. And with all these dating apps and so many options, it can feel like there's always someone better out there, which makes it hard to, settle down with one person.
So it's like there are so many choices that it's overwhelming and you're afraid to commit to one person because you might be missing out on something better.
Exactly. And all of that pressure from society can actually make you forget what you really want, You might end up going after people who look good on paper or fit what other people expect, but they're not actually who you'd be happy with.
So it's like you lose yourself in all the noise and forget what's truly important to you.
Yeah, that's why it's so important to try to tune out all those outside voices and listen to what you really want.
Okay, so given all this pressure, how do we know when we're being picky in a good way, like we're just respecting ourselves, and when it's actually hurting our chances of finding someone?
It's a tough question, and there's no easy answer. Sometimes what looks like someone being too picky to other people is actually just them knowing what they're worth, They're not going to settle for anything less than what they deserve.
So it's about being able to say, this is what I want, and not being afraid to walk away from something that's not right for you.
Exactly. And people who have spent time thinking about what's important to them, like their values and what they need in a relationship, sometimes get called picky, but they're just not willing to compromise on those things. And that's okay.
Yeah, it's about having the courage to stand up for yourself and say, this is what I need to be happy.
Right. It's not about being demanding or perfect. It's about knowing that you deserve to be in a relationship that is good for you, that makes you feel good.
So it's about prioritizing your own happiness and not settling for something that doesn't feel right.
Exactly. And that often comes with being more mature, you know? You understand that being in a relationship just because you're lonely or because people are pressuring you to be in one, that's not going to make you happy in the long run.
Right. So being single is better than being in the wrong relationship.
Absolutely. And that can be a hard choice to make, especially because society tells us we have to be in a relationship to be happy, but it's a sign of strength and self-respect when you choose to wait for what's right for you.
So how can someone figure out if they're being picky in a good way or if it's actually holding them back from finding love?
Well, I think it's all about asking yourself the tough questions. Like, are your standards things that are truly important to you deep down? Things that you need to be happy in a relationship?
So really get to the heart of what you truly value.
Yes, and think about how flexible you are. Are you willing to bend a little bit? Or are you completely inflexible? Are you open to the idea that someone might be amazing even if they don't fit your exact picture?
So be open to being surprised, basically.
Exactly. And think about how you communicate your standards. Are you able to talk about them in a way that's respectful and clear? Or are you always criticizing people and finding fault?
So it's about how you express your needs, making sure you're doing it in a way that respects the other person.
Yes, and finally, and this is really important, are your standards leading you to relationships that make you happy? Are you connecting with people who make you feel good? If not, maybe it's time to rethink your approach to dating.
I think that's a great place to pause for today. Join us next time when we'll continue exploring this topic.
So last time we were talking about how societal pressure can make us forget what we really want in a partner.
Yeah, it's like we start chasing after an image instead of a real connection.
Exactly, and that can lead to a lot of unhappiness. You know, one thing we didn't talk about last time is how all of this relates to self-love.
Well, that's an interesting point. How does self-love play into all of this?
Well, when you truly love and respect yourself, you're less likely to settle for someone who doesn't treat you the same way. You know what I mean?
Right. Like you're not willing to put up with bad treatment because you know you deserve better.
Exactly. And when you have that self-love, you're not looking for someone to complete you or fix your problems because you already feel whole on your own.
So it's not about needing someone else to make you happy. It's about finding someone who adds to your happiness, right?
Exactly. And that kind of confidence and independence is really attractive to others too. It's like a positive feedback loop.
So taking care of yourself, emotionally and mentally, is a big part of finding a good relationship.
Absolutely. And when you love yourself, you're better at taking care of your own needs, so you don't become too needy or clingy in a relationship.
Yeah, I can see how that would create a healthier balance. You're not relying on your partner for everything.
Right. It gives you space to be yourself and allows the relationship to breathe.
Okay, so we've talked about self-love, but what about intuition? I feel like a lot of people don't really trust their gut feelings when it comes to dating.
Yeah, that's true. But intuition is a powerful tool, especially in matters of the heart, you know? It can really guide you toward what's right for you.
But how do you even know if you're listening to your intuition or just overthinking things?
Well, it's often described as that gut feeling, you know? That little voice inside that's telling you something.
Like when you meet someone and something just feels off, even if they seem great on paper.
Exactly. And it's important to pay attention to those feelings, even if you can't explain them logically.
So you're saying we should trust our gut, even when it doesn't make sense.
Within reason, of course. But a lot of times our intuition is picking up on subtle cues that we don't consciously notice.
Yeah.
It's like a deeper level of knowing.
Interesting. So it's not just about what someone says, it's about how they make you feel overall.
Yes, exactly. And sometimes your intuition might go against what you think you should be doing. Like you might be attracted to someone who doesn't fit your usual type, or you might feel hesitant about someone who seems perfect on paper.
So you're saying we should listen to that inner voice,
Right.
even when it contradicts our logic.
It's at least worth paying attention to, yeah. A lot of times, it's trying to steer you in the right direction to protect you or lead you toward what will really make you happy.
I like that. It's like having an inner compass. Okay, so we've got self-love, intuition. Is there anything else people should be focusing on when it comes to dating?
Well, patience is a big one, especially in today's world where everything moves so
Oh,
fast.
patience, yes. That's definitely something I struggle with. It's so easy to get impatient when you're looking for a partner.
I get it, it's natural to want things to happen quickly, but finding the right person takes time. There's no shortcut to real connection.
So how do you cultivate patience when it feels like everyone around you is finding love and you're still searching?
Well, first of all, remember that everyone's journey is different. Just because it seems like everyone else is coupled up doesn't mean they're all happy or that you're behind schedule.
So don't compare your journey to other people's.
Right. And focus on enjoying the process itself. Dating should be about meeting interesting people, having fun, and learning about yourself.
It's about embracing the journey, not just the destination.
Exactly. And while you're waiting for the right person to come along, focus on building a life that you love.
So like pursuing your passions, spending time with friends and family, things like that.
Exactly. When you're happy and fulfilled on your own, you're more likely to attract a partner who's a good match for you.
That makes sense. Okay, so we've talked about being patient with the process, but what about being patient on dates?
Oh, that's important too. Not every date is going to be amazing, and
Right.
you're going to meet people you don't click with. That's just part of it.
So it's about seeing those less than stellar dates as part of the journey, not a sign that you'll never find anyone.
Exactly. Each date is an opportunity to learn something, even if it's just what you don't want.
Okay, so let's say you're feeling frustrated with dating, like you're not meeting anyone you connect with. What do you do?
Well, that's when your support system becomes really important. Don't be afraid to reach out to friends, family, or even a therapist.
So it's about not going through it alone.
Right. Talk to people you trust, people who will listen and offer support.
Yeah, that can make such a difference. It helps to have people who believe in you and remind you that you're worthy of love.
Exactly. They can offer encouragement, advice, and sometimes just a shoulder to cry on.
Okay, so we've talked about not settling, but what does settling actually mean? It's a word people throw around a lot, but I'm not sure everyone understands what it truly means.
Yeah, it's definitely a word that gets misused. True settling means choosing someone who doesn't really align with your values or needs, usually because you're afraid of being alone.
So it's like giving up on finding someone who truly makes you happy because you think it's better than being single.
Right, and it's important to remember that compromise is part of any relationship, but there's a difference between healthy compromise and sacrificing your own happiness.
So how do you know if you're compromising or settling?
Ask yourself why you're with this person. Does being with them make you truly happy, or are you just afraid of being alone?
It's about being honest with yourself about your motivations.
Exactly. And if you're feeling pressure to settle, whether it's from society, family, or your own fears, it's important to step back and reevaluate.
So take some time to really think about what you want and deserve.
Yes, and remember that you're worthy of a love that makes you feel good, not one that feels like a burden or a second-best option.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of challenging aspects of dating. Is there anything we can do to make it feel less daunting?
Absolutely. One thing that can really help is cultivating a sense of gratitude.
Gratitude. But how can you be grateful when you're feeling frustrated with dating?
It's about shifting your focus. Instead of dwelling on what you don't have, focus on what you do have.
So like your health, your friends, your hobbies, things like that.
Exactly. Appreciate the good things in your life, and it can change your whole perspective.
So you're saying even though dating can be tough, there are still good things to focus on.
Right. And you can even find things to be grateful for within the dating process itself.
Like what? Getting rejected?
Well, even those experiences can teach you something. Maybe they help you clarify what you're looking for or make you stronger.
So it's about finding the lessons even in the tough times.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
be grateful for the opportunity to connect with other people, even if those connections don't always lead to romance.
It's about appreciating those moments of human interaction, no matter what form they take.
Right? Every conversation, every experience can teach you something or bring you joy.
Okay, so gratitude is important, but dating can also be emotionally draining. How do you take care of yourself in the midst of all that?
Self-care is absolutely essential.
So like taking bubble baths and getting massages.
Well, those things can be nice, but self-care is really about making sure your basic needs are met. Are you getting enough sleep? Eating healthy foods? Moving your body?
It's about those fundamental things that keep us healthy and grounded.
Exactly. And it's also about setting boundaries.
Like saying no to dates when you're feeling overwhelmed.
Exactly. It's okay to take a break from dating when you need to recharge.
So you're saying it's not selfish to prioritize your own well-being, even in the context of dating.
Not at all. It's actually essential for creating healthy relationships.
And what about self-talk? I feel like the way we talk to ourselves can really impact our dating experiences.
Absolutely. Your thoughts and beliefs can either sabotage your efforts or empower you to find love.
So how do you cultivate more positive self-talk, especially when you're feeling down about dating?
Well, first, you have to become aware of the negative thoughts you're having. What are those critical voices in your head saying?
Like, I'm not good enough or I'll never find anyone.
Exactly. Once you identify those thoughts, you can start to challenge them. Are they really true? Is there another way to look at the situation?
So it's about questioning those negative thoughts and replacing them with more positive ones.
Right. Instead of saying, I'm a failure at dating, you could say, I'm learning and growing with each experience.
So it's about shifting your perspective and focusing on the positive.
Exactly. And be kind to yourself. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone has setbacks.
It's about remembering that you're human and worthy of love no matter what.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about positive self-talk, but what about expectations? I think it's easy to get caught up in the fantasy of finding the perfect partner, but that can set you up for disappointment.
Oh, for sure. Having realistic expectations is crucial for dating.
But how do you do that when you're bombarded with images of perfect couples everywhere you look?
Well, it's important to remember that those images are often just a carefully curated glimpse into someone's life. They don't show the whole picture.
Right, it's like comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel.
Exactly. And even the couples who seem perfect have their own challenges and struggles. No relationship is perfect.
So it's about embracing the messiness and imperfections that come with real love.
Right. And focus on setting expectations that are aligned with your own values and needs, not what society tells you to want.
So what does success in a relationship look like for you personally?
That's a great question to ask yourself. It might be different for everyone.
Okay, so realistic expectations are key. But dating can also feel like a roller coaster of ups and downs. How do you stay resilient when things get tough?
That's where a growth mindset comes in.
Growth mindset, what's that?
It's the belief that you can learn and grow from your experiences, even the difficult ones.
So it's about seeing setbacks as opportunities for learning rather than failures.
Exactly. Instead of getting discouraged when things don't go your way, ask yourself, what can I learn from this?
So like if you get rejected, you could think about how to improve your dating profile or your communication skills.
Exactly. A growth mindset helps you stay positive and motivated, even when dating feels challenging.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of practical tips for dating, but I want to touch on something that I think is really important. Vulnerability?
Oh, vulnerability is huge. It's scary, but it's essential for creating real connection.
But how do you allow yourself to be vulnerable when you're afraid of getting hurt?
It's a process, and it starts with being honest with yourself about your feelings.
So acknowledging those tender parts of yourself that you might usually keep hidden.
Exactly. And then finding people you trust enough to share those parts with.
So it's not about being vulnerable with everyone. It's about finding safe spaces to open up.
Right. It's about taking small steps and building trust over time.
And how do you know if someone is worthy of your vulnerability?
Look for people who are respectful of your boundaries, who listen to you without judgment, and who are consistent in their actions.
So it's about paying attention to how they treat you, not just what they say.
Exactly. Trust is earned over time through consistent actions.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today. Could you summarize some of the key takeaways for our listeners?
Well, I think the most important thing is to remember that there's no right or wrong way to date. What works for one person might not work for another.
So it's about finding what works for you.
Exactly. And remember that dating is a journey, not a destination. There will be ups and downs, but it's all part of the process.
So embrace the journey and try to enjoy the ride.
Exactly. And most importantly, remember that you are worthy of love.
That's such an important message. Believe in yourself, trust the process, and don't be afraid to put yourself out there.
And while you're at it, focus on building a life that you love.
So even if you haven't found the right partner yet, you can still be happy and fulfilled.
Absolutely. Create a life that brings you joy, and the right person will come along when the time is right. And it can be tempting to try to change ourselves to fit what we think other people are looking for.
Yeah, like trying to be someone you're not just to impress someone.
Exactly, but ultimately, that's not going to lead to a genuine connection. The right person will appreciate you for who you truly are.
So it's better to be yourself, even if it means some people won't be interested.
Absolutely. It's about quality, not quantity. You know, you'd rather have a few deep, meaningful connections than a bunch of superficial ones.
That's a good point. Okay, so we've talked about authenticity, but sometimes dating just feels like a lot of work.
Yeah.
Like it's another thing on your to-do list.
Oh, I know what you mean. But it shouldn't feel like a chore. Dating should be fun.
Yeah, but how do you make it fun when it feels so stressful?
Well, I think it's about changing your mindset a little bit. Try to approach it with a sense of curiosity and playfulness.
So, like, see it as an adventure, not an obligation.
Exactly. And don't take it too seriously. It's okay to laugh at yourself, to have awkward moments, to just enjoy the process of getting to know someone new.
Right, it's not about being perfect, it's about being yourself and having a good time.
And don't forget to celebrate the small victories along the way, you know?
Like what?
Like having a great conversation, getting a second date, feeling a spark with someone. Those are all worth celebrating.
So it's about focusing on the positive and appreciating the good moments, even if they're small.
Exactly. Shift your focus from what's not working to what is working, and you'll find that dating becomes a lot more enjoyable.
Okay, I like that. So we've talked about a lot of different aspects of dating today, from self-love to vulnerability to having fun. What do you think are the most important things for people to remember?
Well, I think one of the biggest takeaways is that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to dating.
Meaning, what works for one person might not work for another.
Exactly. You have to figure out what feels right for you, what aligns with your values and your goals.
So it's a process of self-discovery as much as it is about finding a partner.
Absolutely. And remember that it's a journey, not a race. There will be ups and downs along the way.
So be patient with yourself and with the process.
Exactly. And most importantly, never give up on love. It's out there for everyone.
That's a great message to end on.
Mm-hmm.
Believe in yourself, trust the journey, and don't be afraid to keep putting yourself out there.
You got it.
Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about something that can be really helpful for English language learners: expanding your vocabulary.
Yeah, having a strong vocabulary can make a big difference in your ability to communicate effectively in English.
Absolutely. So let's focus on some key words and phrases that you can use when talking about dating and relationships.
Great idea. Let's start with the word picky, which we've already been talking about today.
Right, it means having very specific preferences, especially when it comes to choosing a partner.
Exactly. And it can be used in a positive or negative way, depending on the context.
So it's important to be aware of how you're using it and what message you're trying to convey.
Now, how about the word compatible? This is a really important one when it comes to relationships.
Yeah, compatible means that two people are well suited to each other, that they get along well and have similar values and goals.
Precisely. And when you're looking for a partner, it's important to find someone who is compatible with you, someone who shares your vision for the future.
Now let's talk about the word compromise. This is something that's essential in any relationship.
Right. Compromise means being willing to give and take, to find solutions that work for both people, even if it means not getting everything you want.
So it's about finding a balance, meeting in the middle.
Exactly. And it's about being flexible and understanding that not everything has to be your way.
Now let's move on to the phrase deal breaker. This is a big one in dating.
A deal breaker is something that's absolutely non-negotiable for you in a relationship.
So it's something that if it's not there, you're willing to walk away from the relationship.
Exactly. And it's important to be clear about your deal breakers early on so you don't waste time on relationships that are ultimately incompatible.
Now, how about the phrase red flag?
A red flag is a warning sign, something that indicates that a relationship might not be healthy or right for you.
So it's something that makes you question the relationship, something that feels off.
Exactly. And it's important to trust your gut instincts when you see red flags. Don't ignore them or try to rationalize them away.
Now let's talk about the word chemistry. This is one that everyone seems to be looking for in a relationship.
Chemistry is that spark, that attraction you feel towards someone. It's that feeling of excitement and connection that can be hard to describe.
Right, it's that feeling of wanting to be around someone and feeling a sense of ease and comfort with them.
And while chemistry is important, it's not always enough to sustain a long-term relationship.
You're right. We also need compatibility, which we talked about earlier.
Okay, now let's move on to the word authenticity. This is a big one in dating.
Authenticity means being genuine and true to yourself, not trying to be someone you're not.
Exactly. And when you're authentic, you attract people who appreciate you for who you truly are.
Now let's talk about the phrase growth mindset, which is a concept that can be applied to many areas of life, including dating.
A growth mindset means believing that you can learn and grow from your experiences, even the challenging ones.
So it's about seeing setbacks as opportunities for learning rather than failures.
Exactly. And a growth mindset can help you stay motivated and optimistic in the face of rejection or disappointment.
Now let's wrap up with one last word: communication. which is
Yeah.
arguably the most important ingredient in any healthy relationship.
Absolutely. Communication is about being open and honest with your partner, listening attentively to what they have to say, and working together to resolve conflicts.
So it's about expressing yourself clearly and respectfully and making sure you're both on the same page.
Exactly. Good communication is the foundation of any strong and lasting relationship.
Well, I think that's a great place to wrap up our conversation about dating and being too picky.
I agree.
And to all of our English language learners out there, we hope you found this episode helpful in expanding your vocabulary and understanding of dating dynamics.
Be sure to check out our website for more resources, including vocabulary lists, exercises, and interactive activities, all designed to help you master the nuances of English.
The link is in the description. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for more episodes on a variety of fascinating topics.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Bye for now.